Madonna didn't become untouchable because people stopped being angry at her. She became untouchable because she learned how to use anger. She learned how to turn outrage into attention, attention into control, and control into a kind of power that most celebrities never touch. And here's the unsettling part. The people trying to cancel her before that word even existed often ended up making her bigger. The more they condemned her, the more famous she became. The more they tried to ban her, the more valuable the banned thing became. So this isn't a story about Madonna being provocative. It's a story about Madonna building a blueprint that goes like this. Push the exact symbol that makes people panic. Let the backlash explode. Refuse to apologize. And then use the panic to sell the next chapter of the story. And in this file, there are 3 moments that prove the blueprint is real. The first is the day a major brand deal catches fire in public and the company runs for cover. The second is the moment a banned video turns into a business move. And the third is the exact turning point where Madonna decides, I'm not asking to be forgiven anymore. That's the moment she becomes untouchable. So let's start at the beginning, before the bans, before the Catholic outrage, before the world realized what she was really doing. Because once you see the pattern, you'll never unsee it. Before Madonna became a blueprint, she was a lesson the culture didn't know it was about to learn. Because in the early 1980s, fame was changing shape. It wasn't just radio anymore. It was television. It was image. It was the ability to enter people's homes without being invited. And Madonna understood that faster than almost anyone. She didn't just want to be heard. She wanted to be seen. And once you understand that, you start playing a different game. The public story is simple. Madonna was provocative. Madonna liked attention. Madonna pushed buttons. But that story is too shallow to explain what happened next. The real story is that Madonna learned something colder and more practical. Attention is not a side effect. Attention is the product. If you can control attention, you can survive mistakes, survive scandals, survive hate. You can even turn hate into momentum. And the 1980s were the perfect decade for that lesson to work. Because it was a decade obsessed with moral lines. A decade where the media could still frame a woman as either pure or dangerous and sell that framing as entertainment. A decade where decency was a public performance and where a woman who refused to perform, it could be treated like a threat. This is where Madonna becomes the perfect target and the perfect operator at the same time. She understood that if you play nice, you can be ignored. But if you become a symbol, you can't be ignored. And symbols pull people like gravity. Some come to worship. Some come to attack. Either way, they come. That's the first piece of the blueprint. Don't just release music. Release a moment that forces a reaction. At the start, it's not even necessarily religious yet. It's about the body, desire, independence, the things polite society wants controlled. Madonna doesn't just sing. She projects. She uses outfits, performances, interviews, and visual language to create the feeling that she's breaking rules in real time. And the public can't decide what it is watching. Is she empowering? Is she corrupting? Is she smart or reckless? And the confusion is the point. Because confusion makes people argue. An argument is free advertising. Here's what makes Madonna different from a typical controversial celebrity. Most people provoke and then panic when the backlash arrives. They soften. They explain. They apologize. They try to return to safety. Madonna watched backlash and treated it like a signal. If people are outraged, it means they're paying attention. If they're paying attention, it means you're winning. That doesn't mean she never took hits. It means she understood the math. A scandal doesn't need to be good. It only needs to be loud enough that the next thing you do becomes unavoidable. So she starts building a public identity that works like a trap. If you hate her, you can't stop talking about her. If you love her, you defend her harder because she feels attacked. If you're neutral, the noise eventually pulls you in anyway. The culture becomes a machine that keeps circulating her name, and she keeps giving the machine material. And the more she grows, the more the stakes change. Because at a certain level of fame, your controversy stops being personal. It becomes institutional. Brands start watching. Networks start watching. Religious voices start watching. Because now it's not just a performer. It's an influence engine. And that's when the real test is coming. Because the first time Madonna's blueprint proves itself isn't in a small scandal. It's in a collision with something that's supposed to be stronger than celebrity. Money. Corporate safety. A major brand that thought it could buy her edge without buying the consequences. And when that deal catches fire, you see the blueprint clearly for the first time. You see how fast a company will run when fear enters the room. You see how moral panic can force institutions to pick a side. And you see how Madonna uses the chaos as proof that she's bigger than the rules. But we're not there yet. Right now, you just need to understand what's forming. A persona built not to be loved by everyone, but to be impossible to ignore. A strategy built not around avoiding backlash, but around absorbing it. Because once you can absorb backlash, you become harder to control. And that's the loop to hold on to as we move forward. The culture thinks it will punish Madonna the moment she goes too far. But Madonna is about to show them something terrifying. Sometimes the punishment is the product. And that brings us to the next section. Because the first true turning point in this file is a brand deal that explodes in public, a religious backlash that spreads like smoke, and a company that realizes too late it can't control the story once Madonna is inside it. The first time Madonna's blueprint proves itself in a way nobody can ignore, it isn't on a stage. It's inside a deal, a corporate deal, the kind that's supposed to sanitize risk and turn rebellion into something safe enough to sell in a can. On paper, it's a perfect match. A global brand wants youth energy, culture, edge, and credibility. Madonna wants reach, money, and a bigger platform. The company believes it can borrow her fire without getting burned. And this is where the story gets chilling, because it reveals something about institutions. They don't fear controversy in private. They fear controversy when it becomes contagious. The moment the partnership goes public, you can feel the tension, because everyone understands the hidden question. Is Madonna a symbol you can control, or a symbol that controls you? Then the video drops, like a prayer, and suddenly it's not just pop imagery, it's religious imagery. The kind that hits nerves people don't treat like opinions, but like identity. Crosses, church language, the collision between devotion and desire. It doesn't matter what Madonna's intent is in that moment, because the reaction is bigger than intent. The reaction becomes its own creature. This is where the outrage starts moving like smoke. It spreads fast, it sticks to anything it touches, and it forces people to pick sides. Not because they've studied the facts, but because they're afraid of being seen on the wrong side. Religious groups condemn. Headlines intensify. The story changes from new Madonna video to national scandal. And the brand that thought it was buying a cool soundtrack suddenly realizes it has stepped into a moral battlefield. This is the exact point where you see Madonna's advantage. A normal celebrity in that position tries to calm the room. They make statements designed to soothe. They compromise. They apologize, at least a little, to protect the deal. Because most people treat a sponsorship like a lifeline. Madonna treats it like a test. Because when the pressure hits, the company flinches first. The partnership gets pulled back. The brand backs away. The deal burns in public. And if you're watching from the outside, it looks like Madonna just lost. It looks like the scandal finally cost her something real. But this is where her blueprint reveals itself. Because she doesn't shrink. She doesn't crawl back. She doesn't act like she's been punished. She keeps moving like the deal was never the prize. Like the controversy was the prize. And that's the moment the power dynamic flips. The brand is trying to protect itself from Madonna. But the public is now watching Madonna as someone so powerful that even a giant corporation couldn't hold onto her without getting destroyed. The scandal becomes a proof of scale. It tells the audience, this woman isn't just famous. She is radioactive. And in celebrity culture, radioactive can be stronger than beloved. This is what institutions don't understand until it's too late. When they run, they confirm the myth. They confirm that the artist is dangerous. They confirm that the artist has influence beyond the normal rules. They confirm that morality is still a weapon powerful enough to make a company panic. And every confirmation becomes free marketing for Madonna. Even the condemnation works as distribution. Because now people who weren't paying attention have a reason to look. People who weren't curious now want to see what was so offensive. People who don't even like Madonna still feel pulled toward the scandal, because scandal makes you feel like you're witnessing something important. This is why the brand deal burning is not just trivia. It's the first clean example of the blueprint working in real time. Madonna pushes a symbol that guarantees reaction. The backlash explodes. Institutions panic, and the panic itself becomes her amplification. But here's the darker layer. Once Madonna sees this happen, she learns exactly what the culture responds to. She learns what kind of outrage is the most contagious. She learns how quickly a moral story can outrun reality. And she learns that if a brand can be forced to retreat, then censorship and condemnation are not barriers. They're levers. And once you see censorship as a lever, you stop fearing it. You start designing around it. That's the real shift that happens here. Like a Prayer is not just a scandal. It's a training moment. It teaches Madonna that outrage can make her larger, not smaller. It teaches her that the public is hungry for the forbidden, and that institutions will unintentionally advertise the forbidden by trying to remove it. So the next evolution is inevitable. After the brand collapse, Madonna doesn't move towards safety. She moves toward the edge with calculation, because now she knows something the public hasn't fully realized yet. The fastest way to spread a message isn't always to get approval. Sometimes the fastest way is to get banned. And that brings us to the point. Because the blueprint upgrades again when Madonna stops treating censorship like a threat and starts turning it into a product. A product people can buy, replay, and pass around precisely because someone tried to stop it. Now that Madonna has seen a giant brand flinch, the next move becomes almost inevitable. She stops treating controversy like something that happens to her and starts treating it like something she can design. Because there's a difference between being scandalous and being strategic. Scandalous is when you shock and then hope you survive the fallout. Strategic is when you already know the fallout is coming, and you've planned where the attention will land next. This is where the banned chapter begins. The public thinks a ban is a wall, a stop sign, a punishment. But Madonna understands a secret the culture doesn't want to admit. A ban is also a spotlight. It tells everyone, this is the thing you're not supposed to see. And in a world where curiosity is stronger than obedience, that warning becomes an invitation. So when the next controversy hits and the word too much starts floating through the media, Madonna doesn't rush to soften the edges. She leans into the exact thing that makes gatekeepers panic. And then something happens that reveals the blueprint in its purest form. A major music channel refuses to play one of her videos. It's framed as protection, as standards, as decency, the kind of decision that's supposed to shame an artist into backing down. But Madonna doesn't back down. She flips the meaning of the ban. If you can't distribute it through the usual pipeline, you build a new pipeline. If they won't show it, you sell it. If they try to limit it, you turn the limitation into the reason people want it even more. And suddenly the ban doesn't shrink the audience. It concentrates the audience. Because now people aren't watching casually. They're watching with intention. They're buying the forbidden object, taking it home, replaying it, passing it around, talking about it like it's contraband. The scandal stops being a headline and becomes a product. That's the moment you realize you're not watching an artist react to censorship. You're watching an artist turn censorship into a business model. And it gets darker when you notice how clean the psychology is. The ban creates a question in the public mind. What is she doing that they're afraid to show? That question is a loop. It doesn't close until you see it for yourself. And once you've seen it, you're already inside her world, already part of the conversation, already spreading the story whether you like her or not. This is how Madonna turns morality into marketing without ever saying she's doing it. She lets other people create the outrage, and then she harvests it. And while all of this is happening, her image evolves from provocateur into something more controlled, more deliberate. She's not just pushing boundaries. She's mapping where the boundaries are, and then choosing exactly where to press so the reaction is guaranteed. Here's the key detail. The outrage isn't random anymore. It's predictable. The headlines almost write themselves. The critics and moral voices respond in the same rhythm every time. And Madonna starts moving like she can hear the rhythm before the song even starts. If you're into this kind of story, where celebrity isn't just drama, but a system. Where you see the hidden mechanics behind the outrage, you'll find a lot more in our playlists on stars from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. The same pattern shows up again and again, just with different faces and different reasons the public claims to be offended. But Madonna is different in one crucial way. Most celebrities want the outrage to end. Madonna wants the outrage to peak. Because a peak is when the story becomes unavoidable. A peak is when the world can't look away. And the moment the world can't look away, she becomes harder to control. This is why the band video chapter matters more than the video itself. It proves she can survive a gatekeeper saying no. It proves she can route around the system. It proves she can take the very tool meant to punish her and make it feed her. And once you can do that, the next question becomes obvious. If bans don't stop you, what does? If shame doesn't work on you, what happens when the entire moral machine tries to force you to apologize? Because that's the real war. Not the ban, not the headlines, the apology. The world doesn't just want you to be quiet. The world wants you to admit it was wrong. The world wants you to kneel, even for one sentence, so it can feel powerful again. And Madonna is moving closer and closer to the moment where she decides she will never give them that sentence. But before we get to that exact turning point, we have to look at the force that kept trying to corner her again and again with the same weapon. Religious outrage, Catholic condemnation, the public rituals of calling her immoral, dangerous, corrupting. Because what happens next is bigger than one ban. It becomes a repeating pattern of condemnation that Madonna learns to use like a stage. And in the next section, you'll see how protests, denunciations, and moral fury don't just follow her career. They become part of her marketing plan, whether anyone admits it or not. At this point in the story, it's tempting to think Madonna's scandals are random storms. One video here, one headline there. But if you watch closely, you start seeing the same shape repeating. Like a ritual, a symbol, a backlash, a demand for apology, and then Madonna refusing to give the public what it wants. This is where Catholic outrage becomes more than a reaction. It becomes a stage, because religion, especially in a media culture, has a unique power. When religious voices condemn you, it doesn't feel like a normal critique. It feels like a verdict. It carries the weight of moral truth, and that weight makes headlines heavier, protests louder, and fear more contagious. Madonna understood that. She understood that if you can trigger that kind of condemnation, you don't just get attention. You get myth. You get a story that feels bigger than entertainment. And once your story feels bigger than entertainment, people treat you like a cultural event, not an artist. So the outrage starts moving in a familiar pattern. A new project drops. The imagery hits a nerve. Religious leaders, groups, and commentators respond with warnings and denunciations. Media outlets amplify it because conflict sells. People who weren't planning to pay attention suddenly pay attention because now it feels like a battle. Not do you like this song, but what does this mean for society? And in the middle of that battle, Madonna stays remarkably calm. That calmness is one of the most underrated parts of her power. Because panic needs panic. Outrage needs a target that looks ashamed. When the target doesn't flinch, the outrage has nothing to land on, so it expands. It grows louder. It becomes more extreme. And the louder it becomes, the more it helps her. That's the loop she learns to exploit. In a normal situation, a celebrity wants to avoid being labeled anti-religion or blasphemous because those labels can harden into public identity. But Madonna realizes something. If the label is coming anyway, you can either run from it and look guilty, or you can own the space and control how the label is framed. So she starts reframing the condemnation without even needing to argue directly. The condemnations start looking like overreach, like moral panic, like institutions try to control women's bodies and voices through shame. Whether you agree with her or not, the reframing works because it turns her critics into part of her story. The critics become characters in the drama, and Madonna becomes the center. And that is the most dangerous position to put your enemies in, because now, every time they speak, they're feeding the narrative. This is also where protests and denunciations become promotion in the purest form. The more public the outrage is, the more it signals that Madonna is crossing real lines. And the more people believe she is crossing real lines, the more they want to watch. Because people are wired for forbidden fruit. The louder the warning, the sweeter the curiosity. That's not philosophy, it's instinct. You can see it in how audiences respond whenever something is labeled inappropriate. Even people who plan to hate it still feel pulled to see it, just to know what everyone is yelling about. Madonna's genius is that she makes that instinct work for her instead of against her. And the industry is watching this happen, even if they don't admit it. They see that outrage is not always damage. They see that condemnation is not always decline. They see that religious fury can function like a megaphone. And Madonna keeps proving it by outlasting every wave. But every wave creates a new pressure point. Because the people condemning her aren't only trying to warn others. They're trying to force one specific outcome. They want her to apologize. They want her to step back. They want her to say she crossed a line. Because if she does that, they win. If she admits wrong, their moral authority is restored. The panic closes. The story ends. And Madonna refuses to end the story. That's why Catholic outrage becomes a repeating force rather than a single incident. It keeps coming back because the machine isn't satisfied. It's not satisfied with condemnation alone. It wants submission. And here's the uncomfortable twist. The more she refuses to submit, the more powerful she becomes. Because she starts to look like someone who cannot be controlled by the usual tools. Not by shame, not by bans, not by corporate retreat, not by religious outrage. So the narrative begins to shift. At first it's Madonna is too much. Then it becomes Madonna is dangerous. And then, quietly, it becomes Madonna is unstoppable. That is the moment when backlash stops functioning like a weapon and starts functioning like proof of her strength. And once the public starts reading your backlash as proof that you're winning, you're in a new category of celebrity. The kind that doesn't need approval to dominate the conversation. But there is still one lever left. One final lever that the culture always tries when it can't control someone through fear. It tries to force the turning point. The moment where the person breaks and says sorry. And in this file, that moment exists. There's a crossroads where Madonna could have softened. She could have saved comfort. She could have asked to be forgiven. And instead, she chooses something colder. Something that changes the power dynamic for the rest of her career. In the next section, we go to that exact moment. The moment you promised. The line in the sand where she decides, I'm not asking for forgiveness anymore. That's when the blueprint stops being survival and becomes domination. There's a point in every celebrity scandal where the world stops asking questions and starts demanding one specific thing. An apology, not an explanation, not nuance, not context. A clean, public bow of the head. A sentence that tells the crowd, you were right to shame me. You were right to fear me. You were right to try to control me. Because the apology is the real trophy. It's the moment the moral machine gets to feel powerful. And Madonna understood that earlier than almost anyone. She understood that outrage doesn't actually want to stop the behavior. Outrage wants to force submission. It wants the ritual, the kneeling, the public correction. Because if you can make a cultural figure apologize, you prove the rules still work. So the hidden turning point in this file isn't a single headline or a single protest. It's the moment Madonna realizes that if she gives them even one apology, the story ends in their favor. And instead, she decides she will never give them that ending. You can feel the shift when you look at how her scandals start to stack. At first, backlash looks like a threat. Then it looks like noise. And it starts looking like fuel. And somewhere in the middle, Madonna stops behaving like a person who's being judged and starts behaving like a person who's running the trial. That's the real pivot. She stops playing defense. And you can see it in the way she reframes the fight. The public tries to call her immoral, corrupting, dangerous. Madonna doesn't rush to prove she's good. She turns the lens around. She implies the obsession itself is the scandal. She suggests the real problem isn't her imagery. It's the culture's hunger to police female sexuality, to weaponize religion, to pretend morality is about protection when it's often about control. Whether you agree with her or not, the move is devastating because it changes what the audience is even watching. If you're condemning Madonna and she apologizes, you win. The story is you stop the bad behavior. But if you're condemning Madonna and she refuses to apologize, the story changes. Now it's not about her sin. Now it's about your power, your control, your need to force obedience. And the moment the conflict becomes about control, the moral crowd starts to split. So people stay angry, but others start asking a new question. Why are they trying so hard to break her? That question is poison to moral panic, because moral panic needs unity. It needs everyone to agree who the villain is. When people start questioning the punishment, the panic loses its grip. This is why Madonna's refusal is so important. It's not just stubbornness. It's strategy. She is removing the emotional payoff the outrage depends on. She is starting the machine. And when you start the machine, it has two options. It can calm down, or it can escalate to something extreme. With Madonna, it escalates. The condemnations get louder. The labels get harsher. The tone gets more absolute. This is what happens when a crowd can't control someone through shame. It starts trying to control them through fear, through bans, through corporate pressure, through making them radioactive. But Madonna has already crossed into the category of celebrity, where radioactive becomes another form of power. Because once you're strong enough, being forbidden doesn't isolate you. It makes you fascinating. And this is where her blueprint becomes almost cruelly effective. She lets the world build the drama, and then she simply refuses to provide the ending they want. No apology, no retreat, no comfort for the people trying to contain her. She keeps releasing. She keeps performing. She keeps escalating imagery. She keeps expanding the conversation. And that's when you see the final truth. You cannot shame someone who refuses to be shamed. Once the public realizes that the balance of power shifts permanently, critics can still hate her. Religious voices can still condemn her. Brand can still panic. But none of it can force her off the stage. Because she has made the most dangerous trade in celebrity culture. She has traded being liked for being unavoidable. That is what makes someone untouchable. Not because nobody attacks them, because attacks stop working. And this is the part of the file that should make you uncomfortable. Madonna didn't just survive the outrage. She learned how to turn the outrage into a signal, a sign that the blueprint is working, a sign that the story is spreading. So after this turning point, the next step is predictable. If the apology won't happen, then the only way to keep the story alive is to escalate the scandal itself into something bigger than headlines. To turn scandal into a release. To turn controversy into an engineered product. And that brings us to the next section. Because after Madonna proves she will not apologize, she pushes the blueprint to its most extreme form. The moment where scandal stops being a risk she manages and becomes a business model she sells. Once Madonna makes that decision, no apology, no retreat, something changes in the entire ecosystem around her. Because at that point, scandal is no longer a threat that might end her career. It becomes a tool she can use to steer her career. And that is when you stop watching a celebrity. You start watching a system. This is the part people miss when they reduce Madonna to provocation. Provocation is messy. It's impulsive. It's a spark. But what Madonna builds in the late 80s into the early 90s looks less like sparks and more like architecture. Like she's constructing a machine where every lever pulls attention in the same direction, toward her. Because now she understands the full cycle. Step 1. Release a symbol that will trigger the loudest gatekeepers. Step 2. Let the backlash spread until it becomes the story. Step 3. Refuse to apologize, which forces the backlash to escalate. Step 4. Turn the escalation into distribution, so the scandal moves as a product, not just a rumor. That last step is where the blueprint becomes terrifying. Because when you turn a scandal into a product, you remove the audience's ability to ignore it. People don't just hear about it. They buy it. They share it. They replay it. They carry it into their homes. And the act of banning, it only makes the product feel more valuable. This is how Madonna routes around gatekeepers. If a network refuses her, she doesn't beg. If a sponsor runs, she doesn't chase them. She shifts the pipeline. She makes the scandal travel through a different channel. And every time she does that, she becomes less dependent on approval. That's what untouchable really means in this file. Not that no one criticizes you, but that criticism can't remove you. It can't starve you. It can't corner you into silence. At the same time, there's a cost. And we need to acknowledge it, because this video is not worship. It's investigation. When you live as a permanent symbol, you stop having normal privacy. You stop having normal relationships with the press. Everyone around you becomes part of your narrative, whether they consent to it or not. People in your orbit become characters in the scandal machine. Friends, lovers, collaborators, even strangers. The line between art, marketing, and chaos starts to blur. And once it blurs, the media changes too. Because journalists learn that Madonna content is a guaranteed fire. It's guaranteed clicks, guaranteed debate, guaranteed moral argument. So the press becomes less interested in truth and more interested in heat. The outrage becomes a genre, a predictable format. The same words, the same frames, the same rituals. She's corrupting. She's blasphemous. She's ruining youth. She's too far. And Madonna keeps proving that the frame doesn't stop her. It spreads her. This is the moment where the blueprint stops being personal and starts becoming cultural. Because industries copy what works. If Madonna proves outrage can be converted into profit, other artists start flirting with the same model. If she proves bans can create demand, gatekeepers accidentally become marketers. The entire relationship between pop culture and morality starts shifting. Before, the fear was that a scandal would end you. After Madonna, the fear becomes the opposite. What if you don't cause a scandal and nobody cares? That's how deep her influence goes. She changes the incentive structure. She makes attention the central battlefield. And she proves that controlling attention is often more important than being loved. Now, here's the most unsettling part. Madonna doesn't just wait for people to misunderstand her. She uses misunderstanding. She uses the fact that moral panic simplifies everything. She knows the public will reduce complex art into a simple villain story. And she lets them do it because simple stories spread faster. And that is why her scandals feel like they never die. They keep recycling because the narrative is too useful. Useful to critics who need an enemy. Useful to media who need drama. Useful to audiences who need a forbidden object to stare at. And useful to Madonna because it keeps her at the center. So by this stage, Madonna isn't just resisting the moral machine. She's steering it. She has become the person who can walk into condemnation and come out bigger. The person who can survive bans and turn them into demand. The person who could be attacked for years and somehow end up looking inevitable. And that's why the final chapter matters. Because this is where we close the file and name the blueprint clearly, not as theory, but as a story pattern you can recognize in real time. Madonna didn't become untouchable by being careful. She became untouchable by understanding the rules of outrage better than the people trying to enforce them. And in the next section, we close this case with one final question. If moral panic can be turned into armor, what happens to culture when everyone starts trying to wear the same armor? By the time Madonna reaches this phase of her career, the scandals aren't side effects anymore. They're part of the structure. The outrage isn't something she survives. It's something she uses. And that's the simplest way to describe the blueprint that made her untouchable. Not untouchable because nobody attacked her. Untouchable because the attacks stopped working. If you track the pattern through this file, you can almost see it like a machine running in a loop. She releases something that hits a cultural nerve. The backlash arrives loud and moral, like a courtroom. Gatekeepers try to slam a door. And Madonna refuses to apologize, refuses to kneel, refuses to give the public the ending it wants. Then the backlash, instead of burying her, becomes her distribution channel. That is the cruel trick at the center of the story. Moral panic needs a confession to feel satisfied. It needs the sinner to admit sin. Madonna starves it. And once you starve the machine, it starts consuming itself. It escalates. It gets louder. It gets more dramatic. And the louder it gets, the more it spreads her name. So the blueprint isn't really about shock. It's about control. Control of framing. Control of timing. Control of where attention lands when people try to punish you. The brand deal burning proved that institutions fear contagion more than controversy. The banned content chapter proved that no can be turned into demand. The Catholic outrage proved that condemnation can function like free promotion. And the refusal to apologize proved the final rule. If shame doesn't work on you, people lose their strongest weapon. That's why she becomes untouchable by endurance, by outlasting the outrage until the outrage starts to feel repetitive, predictable, almost embarrassing. The public eventually stops seeing her as a person who keeps crossing a line and starts seeing her as the line itself. The permanent test, the permanent provocation, the permanent headline. And here's the part that should make you slightly uneasy, because it's bigger than Madonna. The blueprint doesn't stay inside her career. It leaks into the culture. It teaches industries a new lesson. That attention can be farmed. That scandal can be packaged. That backlash can be anticipated and monetized. Which means Madonna didn't just win a battle with moralism. She changed the battlefield. Because after her, you start seeing the same shape everywhere. Outrage as marketing. Banned as a selling point. Condemnation used like a trailer. And once that becomes normal, the question stops being, is this moral? The question becomes, is this effective? If you've liked this kind of investigation, where we open the public story and show the hidden mechanics underneath it, you'll find a lot more in our playlists on stars from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And subscribing means you won't miss the next file, because the next story follows the same dark pattern in a completely different form. And one last thought before we close this one. Madonna didn't defeat moral panic by proving she was harmless. She defeated it by proving she didn't need permission. Because once an artist stops needing permission, the culture loses its leverage. But the real danger isn't what Madonna did. It's what happens when you step into the hallway behind the stage. Because the next file isn't about a scandal that fuels fame. It's about what fame allowed people to do when nobody was watching. About the tour culture that normalized things we would call unthinkable today, and the stories that still make people uncomfortable even to mention. Led Zeppelin, groupies, hotel room rumors, and dark tour secrets people still ignore.